has all the elements that I wanted to have in a movie. Drama.
There's something down there.
Action, little horror.
We have Jill Valentine in this movie. We have double the amount of liquors, a lot more of everything. My name and me is Alice.
Comic relief.
I usually drive a Cadillac.
Sexy ladies.
She put her head. Having the responsibility of playing a character that's so loved by the players is brilliant.
I love it, so I just feel like a ninja.
We revitalized the fascination with the zombie movie by bringing it very firmly into the 21st century.
Wait till you get a load of this now.
The first Resident Evil was really an underdog movie. We had very little money to do it, very guerrilla style, where everybody was really trying to do their best job under really precarious circumstances. It did about $110 million, but it became a really big hit on the DVD, and since then has found a good audience out there. That's why we also decided it would be a good idea to do a second part.
I was impressed at how they had translated the first one into a movie first with elements of the game. When they talked to me about what their approach was going to be for the second one, I felt that it was going to expand upon it even more.
With the first film, we weren't trying to simply be one of the games, but here we're going into the world of the game really closely.
I think fans are gonna just have their jaws drop. It's cool as hell.
We included some moments from the video game into the film. The characters come also from that game. Carlos, Jill Valentine.
The Nemesis is here in full regalia.
Scenes in the movie should feel like they came out of the game. I think it'd be fun. If you do it so much, it's almost like you're a part of it. When you watch it on the big screen, it really brings it to life. Well, here the gamers will be able to point to the running street battle and go, that's right out of the game. Oh yeah, I know that.
We spent a couple of weeks really discussing what the storyline would be.
So if that person suddenly appearing, shoot them first.
Paul is the director for the first movie, and we decided that he should write the second one.
Paul and I, since we finished the first film, have been talking about the second film. We've always approached it from a fictional filmmaker's point of view. There's more time with the characters, and we allow them to develop a bit more.
Well, it's a totally different story. The first one was mainly in a lab. This one treats the virus and the undead outside in the city.
We really go deeper into what the T-virus is, how it affects people, what the repercussions are, good and bad.
Mila's character Alice, along with a couple of other characters from the game, Carlos Oliveri, Jill Valentine, they have to defend themselves and try and get out of the city before the whole thing spreads and millions of people die.
There is always that discovery that someone that you trusted is going to be not to be trusted.
It's action horror. You're thrown into this extreme situation, your obstacles are horrific, and you have to survive.
We wanted to really make the second movie a lot bigger, not just in budget, but also in the size and how it appears. It has gigantic locations, it has hundreds of people running around, it has big monsters running around.
There are 47 different locations. It's shot widescreen, so it's got an epic look to it.
On top of that, you've got the Nemesis, and you've got Mila Jovovich doing incredible martial arts. You've got all the fantastical qualities of the game. It's great entertainment.
Okay, cut.
Alexander Witt directed it. We wanted somebody who just was really smart with action.
Alexander Witt is probably one of the world's best trained action directors because he's been the second unit director on some monster action movies like the Mission Impossible series and The Italian Job.
As a second unit director, I learned a lot in how to deal with people, how to work with special effects, visual effects. This was a very good experience for me to take to Resident Evil Apocalypse.
He has just brought a methodology to it that has really helped us to achieve some big scenes.
He sets every shot. He knows how to operate the crane. He can pull focus from over there. It is all about the cameras. It's all about light and magic. And that's something that he really understands.
He does leave a lot open for us when we rehearse to try things to make the characters more comfortable in ourselves. He's really, on this film, become like my buddy. Oh my God. I love Alex. We're in trouble.
Don Carmody and Jeremy Bald had a big team lined up for me to meet, especially key people.
There is a core group of people that I work with, people that I know and trust can deliver A-class films. This camera crew is the same camera crew that did Chicago.
I've never worked with a sequel before, but it's really great because there is this family energy.
It's all his fault.
It's a really lovely thing when that happens, when you're on set and everyone cares about the movie. Everyone's really inspired.
You know, my favorite part of this film is how wonderful everybody's been, how fun the crew has been. I couldn't do this movie without my crew there.
Such an incredible crew. I mean, everybody's working so hard, and I know it's been crazy.
You need an amazing crew around you to make things possible. You try and make a movie on your own, you'll see.
It's Mila Jovovich's movie. She's driving the narrative. We had to have her in it. You know, she's this fierce energy. She has this extraordinary otherworldly beauty. But every time we feel the film might be lagging a bit, we just cut to a close-up of Mila. She's the superstar at the center of it.
Who the fuck are you? Mila's brilliant to work with. She's incredibly smart. She knows exactly how to work with a script and how to work with other people. It's such a brilliant performance. You're like, she's clearly nuts.
She's very dedicated to her work. Before takes, she's running around and
Crazy. It doesn't stop. She works all the time, every day. She definitely has put her heart fully into this.
When I'm at work, I try my best. I want to make sure that the movie is at its best. I'll bend over backwards to make that happen.
On Resident Evil Apocalypse, her character was a little different. She went through a biogenic experiment at the Umbrella Corporation that made her superhuman.
Probably the main element that I've brought to Alice, apart from her outfit, is the fact that we are dealing with this person living with a sickness. She's definitely much more decisive, much more in control of the situation. Through this experiment, Umbrella has unwittingly given her a weapon to use against themselves, and she's gonna use it.
We really were searching for the right Jill Valentine. We knew we had to please the gamers. They've been looking at Jill Valentine for a long time. So we did extensive auditioning and testing Sienna. She really nailed it.
You have to tell your people to shoot, to kill, to shoot for the head.
It is Jill, with her little tube top and her mini skirt, the perfect human translation of that video game. When she's got a gun in her hand, you better run the opposite direction.
You always want to play someone that you like. You want to play someone you're going to have fun with and enjoy, someone that you want to be. Jill's got everything a girl wants to be. She dresses to kill. She can shoot anyone between the eyes in a 50-yard radius. No one can mess with her.
I told you, shoot for the head.
She's just nails. The Jill and Alice relationship is entirely based on mutual respect. I'm good, but I'm not that good.
But it's not just about Jill and Alice, it's about Jill, Alice, and Carlos.
Oded Fair is Carlos Oliveira to me. I mean, we couldn't have found somebody that's more kind of tall, dark, and handsome, but still tough. He's a great actor. He's just got this innate charm about him.
I think there's a little bit of tension between him and Alice, a lot of mutual appreciation.
My love interest.
I like the guy, you know, he's very cool, a fighter and a lover and all that. I thought I could bring something to it.
I think Carlos is supposed to be the man.
Missed one.
To care of all the girls.
You can't help her.
Oh, Sophie Vavasseur.
Not now.
Working with Sophie is just embarrassing because she's so good.
I've seen what they do.
She's a kid by the skin of her teeth.
I'm 9 years old. And I'm clever.
I'm 9 years old. I'm not a little girl.
She's just in your face, smart as a whip.
All my friends call me Angie.
My character, Angie.
She's infected.
I'm sick as well because I got the virus, so my character is injecting herself.
How can you know that?
Because she is too. I think I'm bonding with everybody, especially with Alice. We're always looking out for each other, I think.
One of the other differences between this and the first film is there's a lot more humor in this film.
GTA, motherfucker! Oh, yeah! 10 points! My character is LJ.
I'm like the section of the movie that's gonna keep it a little fun, you know.
Stop! Get back! Get back! Stop! Come on, stop! Get him! Bam!
Shut up, Mike. Stop making us laugh.
Don't shoot!
He makes us laugh so much, it's hard to kind of concentrate.
We're just having fun working together. It's one of those things when you just get on so well, you joke around all the time.
We're all together, and everyone's joking and laughing, and the other actors that aren't in the scene dropping by to say hi, and Sienna coming over and sitting and going, oh, that was great. It's been quite an amazing experience.
Guys, so in this, please, stunt undead, regular background undead, and our heroes.
It's taking a year to basically go from accepted script to completion of the movie. It's just so big.
The only reason why we are making this is to have 90 minutes of entertainment for the audience. We all go into this movie and into this project creating that.
This is all fun stuff, and in the end, it is an adventure. We're trying to help people have a great time.
Who doesn't want to see beautiful women with guns, hordes of undead getting shot, fantastic action sequences? So we just try to make the film as fun as possible.
My first impression of Resident Evil was that it was just non-stop from front to end. Non-stop action.
I always rely and have relied for a number of years on my main man, stunt coordinator, so to speak, Steve Lesescu. He is not just a daredevil. He's an engineer getting into the physics of a particular stunt. He's definitely been challenged on this one.
A little more to the center, Mila. There.
I wanted to make it look very gritty and have action scenes that I hadn't seen before and do it as real as possible.
Alexander comes from an extremely high energy, high stunt-oriented background of second unit directing.
That's one of the things that Alexander Witt brings to the table. He knows that it looks better in real life than just faking it. I've been doing martial arts for the last 3 years, so that kind of came in handy when I had to do all kinds of kicks. Obviously, you have to do some kind of physical training in order to be able to keep up. If you're shooting a scene and you have to jump over a fence and then do 3 kicks and you have to do it over and over and over and over and over and over again, you have to be in a certain physical shape to be able to do that.
I've done various martial arts over the years, so we've just built on some of my own martial art experience, honed those moves, made them much more cop-like, much more dynamic. So you're going to do this on this move, and that'll basically break someone's neck, and I'm like, in real life? Is that, yeah? Okay. It's very cool.
It will make the movie more credible and more realistic that oftentimes our actors are performing their own stunts.
I love the action scenes, the fighting, the stunts. Fair wants to do it. Fair does it, and does it well. You missed one. The girls especially have developed their macho attitude, and they all want to do their own stunts.
All actors want to do as much as they can on camera. Unfortunately, sometimes it's very dangerous for them. In a way, I had to stop them a little bit on getting involved in the stunts.
I mean, nothing should ever happen, but I mean, when you have one of your leads hanging off a cable, 50 or 70 feet in the air, you want to make sure that they know what they're doing.
I think they want you to want to do it. If you're afraid, it would look better if a stunt guy does it. So you need to know when to let go.
When we shot the helicopter jump, what we wanted to show in this shot, we wanted to show the city skyline. We wanted to show that we were actually up on top of the TD Center, downtown Toronto, and it was 450 feet in the air. The first idea was to do this in blue screen, which I didn't like, and I thought it would look a lot better if we could do it for real. So when we did the stunt itself, the helicopter was flying, I think, 50 or 60 feet above the roof, and we had a square full of boxes where the stunt guy would fall in. David Tomasini, the helicopter pilot, brought the helicopter into position, and as he approached the top of the TD Center, we had Joel Harris jump out of the helicopter and pull the guns out as he did the jump and blast the guns on the way down. It was a pretty amazing shot. The only thing that we did later was to include a close-up of him falling. So that we did from a crane on a descender. We let Odette Fair descend, and the cameras were down below looking very close on him.
Jumping out of a helicopter, that's no big deal. I've done that, once a week.
When I first started working with Mila, the only reference I had of her was from Resident Evil 1. My first impressions were we have a lot of work because there's 1,000 times more action in RE2. When we were training Mila, her level of conditioning and just the sheer physical energy that she could come up with every single day just astonished me.
She's been going at it day in, day out, 5 days a week, 4 or 5 hours a day for 3.5, 4 months, working out with various martial art experts, then with trainers, then with fight choreographers, then with the stunt people.
She just excelled at it every single day.
When you're doing 3 hours a day of intensive training, it just wakes you up. Your body feels so much better, you have more energy.
She's in phenomenal shape that she was not in the first film. You really believe her as this evolving super weapon.
So when you see her kicking Nemesis's ass or kicking the Undead's ass, it's Mila doing that.
You know, I'm all like buff and stuff, and I'm all like, yeah, like Linda Hamilton, and like, yeah, what's up?
Mila's stunt double on Resident Evil 2 was Joanne Leach. This was her first feature film that she was actually doing the actual stunts on camera for.
Joanne Leach, my stunt double, is amazing. She's a world champion martial artist. I pretty much said, Joanne, if I can look like you doing that, I'll be fine. So let me just copy you, okay?
You know, oftentimes we watch the dailies and we have to look twice to see, is this now Mila, or was it Joanne, or is it Mila, or is it Joanne?
Joanne did the craziest stunt in the world on this film. You have never seen anything like this, ever.
Joanne had a harness and she was hooked up to a descender rig that I could lower her at a fixed rate of speed. But we also had her on a separate wire guide rig to keep her against the building so that she could achieve the running down the side of the building look. And then we had a completely separate rig set up for the camera.
When I talked to Mila about this shot, she was very impressed and thought it was a very cool shot to do. And of course, she wanted to do it herself.
It's 250 feet. Doesn't mean I can't do it.
I mean, I really had to fight almost for her not to do the shot.
She was on wires and levers. Steve Luchescu had it totally worked out like a mathematician.
I did the last 60 feet of the rappelling down the building, which was scary, to say the least. I mean, I've done 200 and something feet of Magic Mountain where I hang on the wire and I release myself and then I fly like back and forth, right? But the whole way I'm like, oh my God! So this time I had to go 60 feet down, but no screaming. I mean, I don't know if people really understand what that means. It's the illest thing you could ever imagine.
It probably will look like a really expensive and brilliant visual effects shot, but we shot it for real in camera, and it'll be much more impressive for that. Nemesis is just this great, extraordinary, original being. We decided to basically find a really big bloke and built this suit for him.
Nemesis was played by a character by the name of Matt Taylor. Matt is 6'7" and weighs about 320 pounds.
He's one of those guys that you kind of go, hey, how you doing?
You're really, 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 really big, aren't you?
I think people are expecting to see a lot from this character. He has to make the audience believe he is who he is. He has to move a certain way. He has to look a certain way, obviously, and I think if you put someone in there that doesn't move the right way, it's not going to sell. So it's a huge responsibility.
They put this unbelievable costume on him, and it looks exactly like the game and worse.
This suit was designed specifically for my body. No one else can wear it.
Nemesis' suit was literally designed around him. We tried to bear in mind weight issues. The suit itself still ended up weighing 65 to 70 pounds.
Couldn't spend more than 10, 15 minutes in it because it was so hot.
After the number of days I've been in the mask, you get used to it.
Mila and Matt trained together for about 6 weeks straight, approximately 4 hours every day on the fights that they did.
We spent quite a bit of time together. She seems like she's a tough one, so I wouldn't want to get in her bad side.
For every move Nemesis makes, Alice does 5 moves. She's always thinking 5 steps ahead. I tried my best. I tried.
cams were rolling, you know, the adrenaline's pumping, and that's when the Nemesis kind of just exploded.
Resident Evil 2 was certainly one of the more complicated movies that I've ever done. Everything that just basically wore you down and wore you out for the entire time that you shot, you just kind of forget about all that, and you're just really happy when you see the final footage on the screen.
Zombies is a very touchy subject because we really don't know how zombies react. For me, it was important that the zombies were moving the same way, more aggressive and more dangerous. Especially when we had 300-400 people acting as zombies, it was very important that all these zombies kind of acted the same way. We hired this choreographer who came with the idea of how to teach how these zombies would move.
Jeremy, who's the producer, he said to us at the outset, he says, well, the undead are very difficult to do, you know. And it's true, they are very, very difficult to do, to make them scary and to make them real. The logistical challenge is how do you now make everybody uniform in their undeadness?
They were specifically looking for a modern dance choreographer because they did want to get away from anything that had to do with static zombies or B-film zombies.
It's the ideal background because you're actually dealing with the synthesis of body motion and marrying it up to a story.
They want to get some kind of a reality on, okay, how would we do this? So that's when Derek and I pulled together a group of dancers and actors, and we did our initial research module. Basically, we took care of the entire world of the undead. We went right away back to the script. We took a really good look at what the writer was trying to go for. Actually, Derek did an incredible script analysis, which he formulated into a document that he called the Undead Bible.
It's a completely technical document. We had to go through the entire script. Every instance of the undead in there had to be sort of accounted for. It's not that they're undead, it's that there's a virus that makes them undead.
The T-virus in Resident Evil, how does it get into the body, right? Sends a kill team up the spine into the pineal gland, which then bursts and kills the person if they haven't already died from being bitten to death.
After you've got that down, you go, okay, well, now you've got all of these theoretical things that the undead do. Now you've got the challenge of actually translating that into something that not only you can do, but you have to train 1,000 people. You have to train 1,000 people to do it the same. Welcome to Undead Boot Camp! A little monster lab.
We have a little monster lab, yes. And we rearranged their universe.
We had boot camps for 4 days for the principal performers who would go undead. All of the featured.
Basically, we go right into the physical work. First thing I would do is, okay, inhale, exhale, relax, man, let your body go. And then we go immediately right into the work of the undeadness in the eyes, the not there-ness, because that is the key to the undead. What I want you to do is just to start relax all the musculature in your face. Okay, it's like dead flesh, let it rot out. And then you want to try to get a super soft focus with the eyes. Just even relax the eyelids, all the muscles that you usually hold up when you're animated and living, just let them drop down, you know. There's nothing going on, basically. It's like cutting the line. The actual being is gone, and because the being is gone, there is no mind either.
So after we would get the focus going in the eyes, we would immediately start to work on forward mobility. We had 3 instructions.
No hunchback.
Oh yes, no hunchbacks,
straight arms,
no straight arms, and no club feet.
No club feet, no dragging your feet.
Those are the first things. They go like this, or they go like this, or they drag one foot. We developed this thing called liquid zombie and Zen zombie, which is a way for the Resident Evil breed of zombie to move and interact with the living. The Zen aspect is the undead always move towards the living target, and they're relentless. They're always moving towards you. You can push them this way. They take the motion, but the next available thing comes forward. It's almost like they love you. They just want to be with you all the time.
They had this whole thing called liquid zombie, which was about just completely up being liquid, you know, just having no real muscularity, just, you know, everything's just dead, and the only thing keeping you up is your skeleton. You're just very floppy and very, you know, you're getting pushed and you're just kind of leaning and coming back.
They would go sort of slowly in and start this feeding frenzy, but it really needed to be more like this.
At first I was like, excuse me? I mean, it was just, you know, a ridiculous thing to kind of suggest, but then being in there for the few hours we were in there and then going through it and learning and seeing what they were teaching us, it really helped. And even when I shot the scene, Peyton as an undead man, it was a tremendous help. More than what I thought it would be.
If we didn't go that deep with it, we never would have been able to go as far as we did on camera. The guys that we trained in boot camp really brought these characteristics to the set with them. Didn't matter what you threw at them.
We want each actor, each performer to be able to work and think with it and create their own individual undead. We also had a number of children on the set who were wonderful as well. We coached them at the Undead boot camp.
They don't really seem that terrifying, but then when we were actually doing the scene and these little kids were so great, they just got really into it.
It's a city full of citizens and becomes a city full of undead. Each of those undead have their own specific style of moving.
It's really, really unnerving because there you are, this humanoid form appears. They're literally trying to suffocate you. Some of them are really, really horrifying.
As ugly as their ass is, that ought to scare the shit out of you.
I see you, mother.
It's great though, man. Watching makeup make these people up to make them look like they really zombies. They look real, man.
When this stuff is put on your face, you come to life in a certain way. Every kind of skin texture that you could imagine. And this would happen with the background players as well as the featured guys. And the featured guys got contact lenses as well, so that was extra cool.
It's very disturbing. It's very, you walk where all the trailers are and you walk into makeup and all of a sudden there's this guy. It's very scary.
When I first came to the movie, the first time I seen the zombie, I was like, hi. Okay, I'm gonna spit my foot out.
People who I think are heroes are the undead in this movie. All the different zombies that are just standing around, freezing their butts off in full undead makeup with the wind blowing. Some of them women in their nightgown. There's not enough assistants to bring everybody their jacket every single time they say cut. Besides the fact that we don't have enough porta potties for every single zombie to go to the bathroom after their hot cup of coffee.
Just an overall enthusiasm is definitely necessary because the going did get tough. There was technical issues that seemed unsolvable, and there was sleepless nights.
It was a huge job. Sometimes it was hard. Sometimes it was thrilling. It's also very exciting, when you're working with a crew of well over 100 people, when everything comes together.
Husbands killing wives, children killing parents.
Because in the end, that's what you're doing, man. You're working together to come out with this really scary product.
We felt after we were done this project, we felt like we could do just about anything.
When I first read the script, for me it was quite exciting because it was full of anything you could dream of. I mean, it was science fiction, plus a little gore, little creatures, all melded together. I mean, that's quite exciting for a production design because you now can open up your mind to all kinds of things.
With my help, just imagine what you can achieve.
I think for Paul Austerbury, this was a big challenge to create some of the sets that we had in this film. The designs and the ideas that he had was something that I don't know if you could read my mind. It was almost exactly what I was expecting.
When we're researching the movie, we basically cut a lot of pictures together and start presenting ideas in relationship to the script and various locations in the game. There was a lot of good stuff in the game that we could just take a look at, study, and then try to find similar locations, or take the idea behind that scene in the game and develop it based on our script and the locations that we found. The first film was very much underground, very much concrete, slick underground. So every time we had reference to elements of the Umbrella Corporation, I took the design cues from there. We kept it slick, we kept it very gray, concrete, cold.
The first one all took place underground in the hive, so it was very self-contained. We've now gone above ground. To do that, we basically have to take over a major North American city, which we've done with Toronto.
Toronto is a pretty good city for it because Raccoon City is supposed to be this sort of middle American city, not too recognizable. It's sort of a generic, fabricated city. The architecture of Toronto could be parts of Chicago, bits of it could be like New York, but as a whole, it isn't either of those. It's a lot smaller. It's something that you can imagine could be a little more contained, like the script said. SARS hit Toronto quite badly in 2003, and the movie industry went way down. A lot of movies did not come. This was one of the few movies that actually did come.
Toronto has been remarkable. I can't believe any other city in the world would be as supportive. We have been filming outside City Hall for 2 weeks. We've had gunfire, helicopters.
We closed down a major bridge to a whole section of town that is pretty much the only artery there, and we closed it down for 3 days.
Shutting down blocks and blocks of city streets so that we can do running gun battles and fighting between the undead.
We could do anything in the city, destruction, flames, burning cars and all that, and that was one of the reasons that we shot it there.
The way it works in the art department is we read the script, we have some quick discussions with Alexander, and then I go away on my own and I sort of look at references that we've discussed, and I come up with certain sketches and then 3D ideas. And I've sort of modeled quite crudely in 3D on a computer program various schemes, several different schemes for a particular set. And then what happens is I'll bring Alexander in, we look at it, we look at the angles that we can see, whether we need a complete set or we need like 3 walls of a set.
With the help of computer, he always managed to, in 3-dimensional, show me how the sets were going, how the actors were going to act inside certain sets, or showing me camera angles that I could create later in real life.
It was great working with Alexander because he's a very visual guy. We'd be looking over here and he'd go, well, what about if we go over there and look from there? And I mean, he was fearless. He'd always be hanging off the edge of the building where it'd be top of the skyscrapers, looking, saying, well, let's do this crazy move, moving the camera down here or having her run down the side of the building. When we came to the exterior city hall, we were looking in the city for a location that gave us a very open plaza, concrete gray, steel, very cool colors. We had massive helicopters flying in that literally were able to fly in. We had little helicopter gunships flying around, buzzing around, and we had to have a safe place to do that. It was amazing that we were able to do that actually at the Toronto City Hall. It was very gracious of them to let us do such a thing. There was an important scene in the game where there's a helicopter gunship strafing across a glass corridor with Alice running through it and then diving out of the way at the last second. But it didn't have this corridor or anything like that. So I looked at the existing thing and we created our own complete corridor. We added these massive concrete piers and a big, long, curved glass corridor with water in it for reflections. And all the glass broke in the same timing as a helicopter strafing across with the stunt girl running through the corridor, exactly like the scene in the game. Sometimes the design had to alter a little bit to allow for certain stunt rigs, fire things, explosions. Not always just about the look of the set for me, it's about everyone else's requirements. There's a lot of departments have to be involved before the final design can be executed. And once we've settled on that, then it goes down to the construction department. This movie had a few more location builds than we normally do. I mean, big scale builds over a very short period of time.
I suppose the most challenging would have to be Alice's introduction in the church. There isn't a church in the world that'll let us shoot this thing.
7 weeks to build it, and it probably had about 100 people working on it at the most. Carpenters, painters, gripped rigging. It was a very large set, went right to the ceiling of the studio, and we had full ceiling and everything. I felt that it should be a dark kind of stone, a little more gothic church to give it that little more creepy feeling, because they come in here at this point as a little refuge. It's dark, there's strange noises, and you want little nooks and crannies and things like that to hide behind, and just that dark sort of gothic feel. I ended up looking at old books from churches in England, and I found some interesting woodcuts of carved wooden angels sticking out of the rafters up high, and I thought it'd be kind of interesting to juxtapose, you know, our devilish creatures, you know, when they're running around the rafters with a pristine carved wooden angel up there, and, you know, they're not sure what they're seeing. A lot of stunts take place in the church. This is the big opening for Mila's entrance into the church. She crashes through in a motorcycle. We tried different candy glass, different types of plastic in front of things. I had a real stained glass artist draw up a watercolor that we then scanned, created basically a giant slide of each of the panels. And then from that, we stuck those behind a vac-formed plastic that gave us that texture. We layered that on top of the slide, and then on top of that, we put the fake leaded glass look. And then behind that, we put breakaway glass that really doesn't hurt anyone. And then we had to score individually, carefully, all the little pieces of the image and then the plastic in front of the image in the same way, and then carefully tack them all with hot glue back again and gingerly put them all back in. And then the stunt came through and smashed it all to smithereens, and then we had to do it all over again. We did it twice. I hope that when an audience walks away from this movie, they thought that we're fairly true to the game and they walk away happy. Oh, I hope that people who didn't know the game just thought it was a great visual movie and they didn't know where the influences came from.
For this project, we decided to go with some big guns. I'm having a lot of fun.
Personally, I don't like guns.
Get the guns out of my damn face.
But we love our guns. They're just so sweet.
If anyone ever tells you that guns aren't fun, they're lying. They're great fun.
I've never shot a gun before. There's nothing to it.
Try to hit him in the head. It's like...
No, don't shoot them!
20 different types of weapons we use in this movie. Everything from submachine guns, machine guns, up to heavy caliber sniper rifle, 50 caliber sniper rifle.
I got the power.
It was a really good mix all across the board, and it was important for each character to have something a little different. This is the one we chose for Carlos, and Carlos carries two of them. Big bang, big gun, big flash.
They're very noticeable. The first time you shoot these things, they're so loud and so powerful, you kind of can't help looking funny, like you're losing control and you're blinking. The last thing you want is action hero to be going
10 points!
LJ got the pretty one.
Motherfucker, please, look. My shit is custom.
He got the same one, but it's gold. When he saw this for the very first time, he says, I gotta get me one of these.
Respect, man.
Big gold, nickel-plated Desert Eagles. I know how to use them, for real.
I got 2 9mm handguns. Got 2 Uzis. And I got a shotgun on my back. I used them all more than once.
This is a Target 45 pistol that we modified, and that facilitates spinning. She carries 2 of these underneath her arms.
Alice has got to be able to get to her Uzis really quickly. You don't want to see Alice struggling with her Uzis.
And the last weapon that she carries is the shotgun. Mila had to pull it out of her holster assembly and then point it with one hand. And even with me, I have a little bit of a shaky hand because it is heavy. Mila was able to handle this, point it, steady hand, and have no problems with it at all.
Point, pull, repeat. That's all there is to it.
Joe Valentine spent hours and hours out on the shooting range. She's definitely got a guy thing happening with that weaponry, and she's very, very tough.
I'm trying to stay very true to character. I'm not allowed to shoot with 2 guns because a police officer would never do that in case they lost a weapon. It's great when you get it right. It makes you feel very good.
Every gun was big and loud. We had people, does it have to be that loud? The answer is yes, it has to be that loud.
It's 11, you have to stop shooting guns now. Like, oh, it's 11, stop shooting guns. Oh, there's rules. There's a real world out there.
My favorite gun is the railgun of the Nemesis. 3,000 rounds, just outstanding.
This weapon generally fires 6,000 rounds a minute, but we've geared this down to 3,000 rounds a minute. The regular barrels have been cut down to 14 inches, and we've added all this aluminum furniture on the outside with a feed chute. It weighs about 100 pounds when fully loaded with the magazine and everything. We psyched our actor up saying that this one's going to be 100 pounds. He's going to have to hold it with one hand, and once we modified it all, it ended up only being fully loaded at about 65 pounds.
The first time I fired it was indoors in a corridor. Just because of the enclosed space, the pressure from the gun actually put me back a step. I wasn't expecting the pressure from it. I fired big guns, but nothing that comes close to that. Definitely not.
Resident Evil Apocalypse, the show is substantial in terms of visual effects. The goal was to make our effects as real as possible, as seamless as possible, push them a lot farther than was done in the first film.
I start off looking at the script, breaking down the work I see in there into potential visual effects. Some areas are very clearly visual effects, when those stray the way that you couldn't achieve it in camera.
My approach for the movie was to do it as realistic as possible. If there's something that we couldn't do on camera, then go and talk to our visual supervisor and see how we could achieve this on CGI.
We used a variety of visual effects techniques, every kind of digital manipulation you could think of. We had green screens, CG creatures, all sorts of CG objects, tracking, matte paintings, wire removals, screen graphics, miniatures, you name it, we have it. One of the more exciting sequences in the movie was the liquor sequence, which takes place in the church.
The lickers are back, more cunning than ever. Meaner, very malicious.
Massive monstrosities, they're just beasts with big 6-foot tongues.
The church liquor sequence started off as one page of description of action in the script. The director storyboarded the sequence. We just sort of took it from there. The big challenge with it was to get the creature looking right. The basic design is lifted from the game, essentially. There was an intent to do an animatronic creature for some of the sequences. Most of the shots didn't really have the right behavior and the right look, so it was decided to go full CGI with the creature. Every liquor shot is a computer-generated creature. We referenced a lot of baboons, lions, things that are aggressive, and he does sort of hop around on all fours. So we did reference some frogs.
They're quite a difficult creature to work with because they don't have any eyes. It's very difficult to create expressions. I've really built a lot of the emotion of these creatures into the tongue. So in shots where I really wanted to portray a lot of aggression, I've really got that tongue going like a whip. Its texture is that of a flayed human being. I pretty much said, go to the butcher's, get some steaks, some chops, and scan in raw bloody meat as texture.
We start off doing rough animations to get approval on, move into refined animation and lighting and compositing. We rendered different passes for this creature's surface, different pass for the specular highlights, diffuse, the reflection, as juicy as possible.
I don't deal with the zombie dogs this time. I let Jill take care of it.
Yeah, the dogs. Oh, puppy. I'm gonna kill the puppy. Puppy's gonna kill you. Okay, kill it. Okay.
The dogs had been characters in the first movie as well as being characters in our movie. These dogs have to look fantastic. Everyone will be completely let down if they don't look as good in this movie.
Jasmine, she's back. Nobody can look her in the eyes. There are very strict rules. She requires total star treatment, has her own trailer. She's just great. And it was funny when they came back, they definitely remembered the makeup that we put on them from last time, because it takes hours.
As in the first film, there were very well-trained, real live Dobermans on set who did the stunts and ran around. There was practical makeup done on the dogs on the day on set, but not too gory or nasty.
But I think you just need more blood on it.
We ended up with a lot of difficult shots where we were having to create bloody gore makeup, essentially, and track it into the dogs.
They literally just attached two-dimensional painted textures back onto the dogs. That sounds a lot easier than it really is. It really did take weeks and weeks of fine-tuning and detailed work in order to make it seamlessly integrated back on top of the plate.
Some of the shots in the film aren't so high-tech as the shot where Jill pans the stiffy, as we call it. Just a rubber dog, essentially, with makeup on. Didn't move, didn't do anything. Just a rubber dog on a wire, and she smacked it with the pan.
I basically call it souvlaki dog because it looked like a big fake rubber dog, but its skin was peeled off. And there's nothing better than a good hero's death and then having your throat ripped out. I know my mom will be like, that's my boy. Oh, shit.
We have a couple of helicopter sequences in the movie. The first one, Oded's introduction as our hero.
Nikolai, tie me off!
The stunt people felt very comfortable in doing this stunt for real by a stunt man jumping out of a helicopter into a safety bag. And then my work was merely to add a rope onto him. The other helicopter sequence, which is at City Hall, some of those shots are real, and some of those are miniatures.
The sequence was carefully boarded out, scripted, and planned so that the helicopters would be flying in a distinctive yet recognizable fashion to sell that you're shooting on location with a real helicopter. It starts moving from right to left. You cut to a miniature as a missile is about to hit it. The helicopter still needs to be traveling in that same path. So we were very careful in planning that out. We created the two helicopters in scale. They were smaller miniatures, about 1/8 scale, loaded with gasoline and explosive charges. And so the helicopters moved as they were exploding, and they were built on a rig to come flying at camera. We ended up using close to 10 helicopters to get the shots perfectly. There were about 6 shots in the sequence. It took about a week of different takes to get it to happen right.
Tough Alice. She's not scared of anything. Of course, inside, I'm just going, oh my God, how am I gonna do this?
Mila rappelling down the face of City Hall. Originally, it was going to be she was just running left to right, and then as the camera rotated and pulled around in front of her, widening the frame, then you realized, hang on a second, she's running vertically down the side of a building. That shot was so successful that it was almost too fantastic to be real, even though it was real. Another shot was inserted, which is now the shot which starts the sequence.
We were on a green screen in the studio with the actress, and everything else that you see in the shot was created in the computer. We had the motion picture cameras on the roof of the actual City Hall shooting different tiled plates that we then used to create our CG environment that moves. The next shot in the sequence is the beginning of her run down the side of the building. The stunt woman actually ran down the full 280 feet to the bottom, and that's the second shot in the sequence where we actually replaced the stunt woman's face.
We have a number of face replacements on the movie. For example, in the glass corridor, where we painted out the stunt lady, and then we shot a green screen Mila and literally popped her over the painted out Joanne plate to complete the shot. The Nemesis is a prosthetic, an actor in a suit with a mask. The mask had different expressions built into it that were manipulated using remote control. It was apparent in close-up shots that there was the eyelid of the mask, and then underneath that was the eyelid of the actor. We had a look at stretching the mask up to meet the very rim of the actor's eye. It turned out to be a very successful technique.
Nemesis vision was this hybrid vision of a creature that's really a man, and yet he's part machine. They wanted to combine an organic feel to the look with color, as well as have elements that are more true to the video game. It was a pretty unique look and pretty effective at telling the story of his character and how he reacts and interacts with his environment.
One of the scenes is completely CGI, which is the nuclear explosion that we have at the end. This is a simple example of something that can be done in real life because we couldn't destroy a real city.
A reference for the atomic blast was atomic blasts. We had all kinds of nuclear testing footage, recently declassified footage. It's semi-based on reality, but mostly like a creative, what could it look like?
We see the missile explode, and at that point we take over to the miniature to actually blow it up at the end of the movie. We created this immense miniature of City Hall, about 1/6 scale, and the miniature itself is about 43 feet tall. Lots of plaster and glass and steel. There were 1,600 panes of glass. When you see the windows blow out in sequence floor by floor, each window has a separate charge attached to it. There is window dressing and debris and building supplies built in scale inside the building. All of that projects outwards, and it took us nearly 4 months to build the model, and on the day when we went to shoot it, we had 7 cameras shooting plates, as well as 4 other cameras shooting just angles that we decided to create on the day.
We then added other CG particles over top of that, and a visible front edge as it moves through the frame.
It sells on film as if we really blew the building up.